Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. I'm 𝗙𝗍𝗫 and my mission is to inspire you to rise up, grow, stand out, and take action towards the next level of your life. I interview leaders, influencers, entrepreneurs, authors, exceptional people who can and will inspire you to improve your life. Tune in for 2 episodes each week and make sure you subscribe to the podcast to get the episodes as soon as they are released. In today's show, it is my real pleasure to speak with Frank Saliki. Frank, you are a published author, a motivational speaker, and life coach. You have a captivating story from growing up in adversity and hating yourself to your own personal journey to arise and shine, as you say. You are passionate about motivational speaking, and you believe that any person or business can succeed if they use the correct strategies. Frank, it is my absolute pleasure to speak with you today.
It's an absolute pleasure to be with you today, Agi.
It's awesome. Frank, I want to start obviously with this fascinating journey of your life and some of the turning points in that. So can you take us back right to the very back? So you were born in Africa, in Zambia, and you had a difficult, lots of adversities and bullying and things like that. So do you want to give us some background? So where we're starting from?
Yes. So from what I can remember, I always felt like I got into this world and I was completely different. And people were easily picking on me. I remember when I first started school, it was like just being thrown into a deep end. Year one of school, I did not know what was going on. I was the slowest kid in class. And my year one teacher at the time made a little song that everybody used to sing. And it went a bit like, Frank Saliki is a fool, Frank Saliki is Mr. Bean. And everybody used to sing that around school. So everybody then knew me because of that song. Mm-hmm. So wherever I went, people would sing that song. And very quickly, I started to struggle to fit in. Who wanted to be a friend with a kid everybody used to sing that song to? No one. So from then on, it just became a really lonely journey. And for me, trying to fit into the world became very, very difficult. I didn't trust a lot of people. People told me a lot of things about me. And what was more important is I believed those things. People said I was stupid. I believed I was stupid. People said I couldn't do things. I believed I could not do things. So I started growing up with that belief then that I could not grow. I could not do other things. People could bully me. Then the next day they want to be friends with me. I would still play with them because for me, that's what I thought I should be treated. I didn't think of any more. I didn't think of any better. So I just settled for somebody's going to be my friend. Okay. Next day, they don't want to be my friend. But next day, I want to be my friend to go back to them again. So I just grew up with that belief in everything that I did that I wasn't really good enough.
And that's, the belief of not being good enough is something that I'm sure many people relate to. And I believe the next step in your journey, that turning point, was when you left Zambia to move to the UK, and you say that it was then when the real troubles began from you.
For me that was a journey and a half. I grew up struggling so much, and we moved to Zambia when I was 15 years old, and for me that was a very difficult transition in itself. You don't believe in you. I did not believe in myself. I did not believe I was good enough. But then I kind of moved to a new country where I just feel like, I'm so inferior in so many ways. Mm-hmm. I hated myself. I hated my skin color. I hated the way I spoke. I hated the way I looked. I hated everything that was me. I didn't like everything that was me. I was bullied through school again. And I still had this trouble that I was not good enough for what I was. In 2007, I found out I failed my high school exams. Mm-hmm. That was a turning point in a right direction, because the day I failed my high school exams, that's the day when, you know what, I gotta do something with my life. Otherwise, my life is not going to go anywhere. There's this moment in my life I talk about was I'm walking outside school and I watch young people on my left-hand side celebrating, and young people on my right-hand side really despondent.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, I've got a choice. I've got a choice. In a few years' time, I might be celebrating or I might be despondent. It's my choice now. I've got to choose from here. So that day I set a goal to go to university. But even though I set that goal, it was still a struggle. I still did not feel I was good enough. I was still suffering. I was still anxious. I was still depressed. And I still carried that within me in everything that I did. I still never loved myself. I still never know what abilities I could have. There's an experience that was so powerful. It was 2012. I woke up one day and I thought, I can't do this. I was in my second year of university and I just said, I cannot do this anymore. My whole family were asleep and I woke up and I went outside and I go, I'm going to take my life today. And I went to this bridge in Newport in South Wales where people used to jump off. And I went, that's it, I'm going to do this. And I got to that bridge that night and I found a man who was planning to do the exact same thing. And all of a sudden, there was this bit of me that went into action. I started talking him out of jumping out the bridge. So that day when I went to take my own life, I helped somebody not to jump out of the bridge and I went home. And that's the time I started realizing that, hang on, there's got to be something more. There's got to be something in you that is really stronger, bigger than any circumstance. And for me, that's when I started looking at the possibilities that are out there. Even though at that point, I really didn't have that self-love about me, but I just thought there's got to be something more out there.
That's fascinating. You know, there are two things I made a note while you were saying this story. One was when you took the decision on that day that you want to be with this side of people, the ones that graduate. You said that obviously it didn't change the next day. So taking the decision is really the turning factor, but then it is all the work, the taking the action to actually move us where our decision. And that's a big distinction because you can decide or we can plan.
Yeah.
It's great, but it's the action that is going to create that reality for us.
Yes, the action that follow, because as you said, the things don't change tomorrow. The reality when I woke up tomorrow was I had failed high school. When I woke up the next day. So that was the reality. And the reality was I had so much work to do. The reality was it was going to be hard. It was going to be tough. Mm-hmm. So actually making a decision to say I'm going to do this doesn't mean it's not like somebody walks in front of you and say, good, you made the decision. Now I'm going to take away all the obstacles. No, the obstacles remain and go, right, we're going to stay right here. Let's see if you're going to get through the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's an important distinction to make about decisions and actually walking the talk of the decision and committing to carry on. And you know, the other thing with your story that obviously I can't even begin to imagine what went through your mind on that night at the bridge. But I suppose when you go with that intention and you end up talking someone out of it that had a similar intention, I think I can only imagine this shifted something in here very much for you.
It is. It's that moment. It's that moment where I'm walking back home and I thought, where has that come from? Mm. It's that realization that you've got so much power in you, because I did not know how much power I had. I did not know what I can do. And in everything that we do, when we are moving forward, when we're making progression in our lives, the one thing that we try to do is forget our past or try not to acknowledge our past. But one thing in the quest for self-love, what I realized is I had to acknowledge my past. I could not ignore my past. Then I had to look back and say, what has my past made me? Because that moment on the bridge started in 1996 as a year one student who'd been bullied. Mm-hmm. For me, that was a muscle. So from every bit of difficulties I first round the corner, for me, that was a muscle. And when it got to that moment from the bridge, that moment did not begin that night when I left home. Mm-hmm. That moment began in 1996.
Yeah, it's... I truly believe that our life is guided in many ways. So all these things, when you look back, you realize that how they have been. Whereas when you're living them or in the moment, you can't necessarily see the big picture. It happens afterwards. So Frank, tell me, what did you change after that night? How was it? Was that the point when you turned that around and started to gain back the self-love you never had?
But that moment for what it was a powerful moment. But what was incredible is it helped me to go through the last year and a half of university.
Right.
Because straight away, I kind of walk up and I go, I'm going to do my studies. It gave me that knowledge to say, I can do this. I can make those steps. So it helped me through the 1.5 year of university that was left. But that day, without realizing, something a lot stronger was born. Something a lot stronger was being born. And I did not really start working on that until November 2014. Mm-hmm. So from that, I began a new journey. I made up a Facebook page the night after I helped that man not jump off the bridge. I set up a new Facebook page and I started writing encouraging posts every day. Yeah. So what I did that day is actually change the direction of what I was doing. I kind of thought, what ideas can I share? What can I give? Can I encourage somebody? So I started from that point, just sharing ideas. So I did not do anything that was massive. I did not stand up the next day and say, I want to speak. I was still terrified of public speaking at that time, by the way. And so I just did the smallest thing I could do. So I'm going to share a word of encouragement a day. So that night helped me finish my studies, but also began a new journey just to encourage other people.
Mm-hmm. And how relevant did you find that in coming back to you as a result, as a consequence, in terms of gaining some of that courage back yourself?
That is quite, for me, and it was like the encouragement I gave in the first year. I gave a lot of encouragement, which was really encouraging for me. A lot was, for me, you don't have to give up. A lot of you are wonderfully made. A lot of it is you are created for this purpose. You will find the way you are. You don't have to change yourself altogether to fit into the world. The world needs you as you are. So a lot of it was, I say, self-talk. It's changing my own self-talk from I'm not good enough, I can't fit in, the color of my skin, I can't ever do anything great. It was reversing that a lot.
And that's, I actually want to talk about that as a process. And before we do that, I want to ask one more thing to get even a better, I think, understanding of how you were. And you say that you hated your skin color, you hated your accent. So I want you to, can you describe to us how it feels to be like, to feel so different, but in a very negative way?
You can't do anything. You can't do anything. Imagine this, you enter a full room, you enter a full assembly. You're not comfortable in your own skin. So the first thing in your mind is, I can't sit next to anyone because no one is going to want to sit next to me. So you are looking for, if there's an empty chair at the back, you are looking to find that empty chair at the back. If there isn't an empty chair at the back and you're going to go to sit next to somebody, the whole experience is uncomfortable. It's the worst experience, but you're like, I can remember this. I used to stand there and just like, wow, there's no sit. I've got to sit to somebody else. I used to sweat like anything else. It was so uncomfortable. And then it comes to talking. I hated my accent. I hated the way I sound. So then it means you can't speak up. You can't ask the teacher to say, can you repeat yourself because I didn't understand. So you can't repeat those things. So you're really working into this world where you need to communicate with people. As you know, in the world, it's all about communication. But you are not comfortable in your own skin. So you find it hard to communicate. Because if one kid laughs at your accent, to you, because from where my esteem was, how low my self-esteem was, everybody else was laughing at me. So from that point, you just think the whole world is against you. So you're living in a state that is so depressing, it's so uncomfortable. You're not comfortable in the smallest little things. You're not comfortable in just ordering food at McDonald's. You're not comfortable in just paying stuff. So it's not just those. It's not just a big thing. Big things like standing up and speaking assembly. It's the smallest little things in your life that becomes just so much hard work for you.
Yeah.
And that you're living in that bubble where you're just thinking, well, it's so much easier. I think my parents used to say, you're in your room, because sometimes I would stay in my room for 8 hours and play music because that was just a lot more comfortable. Nobody can see me. I can't compare myself to the next guy I saw coming around the corner. So that was really uncomfortable. It all just became a really uncomfortable experience.
Thank you. And the thing is that no matter, let's say, the person next to you, that you sat next to you, they might have had the best intentions. But when you feel like that about yourself, you emit that. So the other person will, at some level, pick that up and certainly not behave in the same way that would have if you didn't have that
It didn't happen.
fearful inner dialogue.
Yeah.
I am familiar with that, Frank, myself, not in the same way, but in a limiting belief way of not allowing me to express myself and keeping everything, all my thoughts to myself. So I think it's very common. I'm sure you've seen that with many people, that this kind of fear of not good enough, or the fear of the judgment from other people, is one of the most common fears that the majority share.
Yeah. Do you know one thing I notice is wherever you go, I've worked in organizations where you get this one person who walks in the room. They walk in the room and they speak to everybody the same way. Yeah. And what is amazing about it is everybody else responds to them the same way. It doesn't matter how long somebody has been. I worked with this woman. I walked in and she came in, she greeted me like I've known her for 10 years. And I started speaking to her and we spoke like we've known each other for 10 years. Because of the way she walked in the room, that's exactly the way I responded to. And when I look at that, when I look back on my school days, a lot of people used to respond to me probably in that way because of the way I carried myself.
Yeah.
And some of it might have looked like people don't like me, but it's just people really being uncomfortable and they don't know how to respond to you because you're producing this negative vibes. It just goes out. If you put out the positive vibes, people respond to that. You put out the negative vibes, people are going to respond to that as well.
Absolutely. So, Frank, I want you to take us then to this journey of gaining back your self-love. And I want you to share with me some major discoveries you made along the way.
One of the major discoveries along the way that discovery. So 2014, I read Les Brown's book, You Can Live Your Dream. This was something else. You read a book and you put it down and you go, I can do that. I can definitely do that. At the time, I was really still self-conscious and everything else. And at the time I thought, I can do that. Then we had a few months after that, I started making these videos. Then somebody said, "Oh, if you want to be a motivational speaker, you better write a book. It usually helps." And I thought, English is my third language. I don't want to be writing a book. This is, again, it's that self-consciousness and everything else. And I sat there and I started typing this thing. Let's give it a go. And I could not believe, even up to now, how easy I found the whole process. So within like 7 months, I've got a book. So then I started this journey of speaking to people. And along the way, I started, for 2-3 years later, I had my own event called Finding Your Voice, which was set up in Gloucester. And even up to that, I had my own book. I had won a Toastmaster speech contest, an area contest. I had come third in a division contest. And I'm still asking, why is it that I've done things that so many people can only dream of, but I still don't feel comfortable? And then this way come back to running away from my past. Because in everything that I was doing, the one thing that I was doing is I was trying to run away from my past. I was trying to bury my past. And we can't just wake up one day and bury your experience. You can't bury what you've gone through. You can't bury the head one day. It's about sitting there and acknowledging the pain. And this one day I sit there, and it was this one night, I'm sat there and I just cried. I cried for 2 hours, and I sat there and I thought, let me just feel the pain. Let me acknowledge what I'm feeling. I don't love myself. I looked in the mirror and just said, I don't love myself. And a few weeks later, I had an event with 𝗿𝗶𝘆H. And we sat there, and I'm sitting there, and this everything that he said, when it got to the power of self-love, the importance of self-love, that hit me. He's sitting there, and I'm looking at everything that I've done, and I thought, I've got everything. I've got my coaching that goes really well. I've got my speaking that's going really well. I've got my book there. I'm writing another book. But the one thing that is missing more than anything else is what I think about me. Because in everything that I was doing, I was still this 6-year-old who was rejected. Even though I have so many friends now who care, who love me, I've got a wife who's always there to care for me. I was still this 6-year-old kid, still crying for acknowledgement, still crying to be involved, still crying to be loved. And at the same time, I was an adult who was trying to run away from that experience. See how confusing the whole thing is. So it's still got to be this kid who wants that love and that care, but I was still the adult who's trying to run away from that experience. And I had to sit there and I go, I accept that kid did not get the love and care that he needed. But that was a foundation that I needed. That was a foundation to something else. And I sat down, I made every experience. So my next book called Finding Your Voice is all about every experience in my life. I've set up the years and what I learned from every experience. So what did I learn? Because of being called names from year one, what did I have? A lot of those kids didn't have. I thought straight away I had to start learning to be strong. I started learning to be strong at 6. And I look back and I go, if I did not have that experience, I could not be doing the things that I do today. If I did not have that experience, I could not be somebody who, when I have a setback, I'm one of the people, when you get a setback one day, I spend 2 hours a day, the next day I'm up. And I look back and I go, it's because of that experience. I'm able to overcome a setback a lot quicker than what other people can do. And it generally what I ended up having is what are the great things that have come back from my past experiences? And I sit there and I go, can I write 10? And I start writing. At first it was really hard. But RG, when I started going, I was like 115 things that are really working out well for me because of my past experience. And I'm able to look back and I got 50 things that are working out so well today because of my past experience. And that's the point I go, I don't need to change me. I need to love me. And I can enjoy the things that are got in my life right now.
It's a great way to describe it. It's fascinating because I was about to ask you. You said to not not ignore the past, to acknowledge the past, to sit down with it, and you said about crying. So I was about to ask you. So someone who wants to acknowledge the past and find out the pain that there is there in their child self. What kind of process would you recommend to take?
I think it's one of those things that you do it better with. You do it a lot better with your coach or your counselor, because I was able to do that process because I'm a coach. So I was able to go back to that process and ask those questions to myself or what I needed to ask. So it's a process where you sit down and think, what have I learned from that experience? What was that experience all about? What has really come out? So it's almost like you're trying to create branches from that experience. What has come out from that experience? Because a lot of times when we look at a past experience, we're really focusing on the painful bit of that experience.
Mm-hmm.
We go back to say, that was really painful. That experience may have stopped being painful 10 years ago, but we're really focusing on the fact that at that time it was really, really painful, that we actually do not acknowledge what has come out because of that experience. What do you do because of that experience? Like I say, I'm one person now I recover very quickly to setbacks. I'm one person now, probably I never get affected by what people think because of that experience.
Mm-hmm.
I've just learned, sometimes people are not going to like you. Sometimes you're going to get people who were negative about your dreams and everything else. So I've learned from that experience. That is a good side from that experience. There was pain then. There was that pain. But the question is whether you want to carry that pain in the future, or you want to say, it was painful, but I'm going to get these things that have come out from it.
Frank, let me ask you. Let's say you had to give to the listener. Let's say the listener now is struggling with their own sense of self-love. Let's say they're not in the best of places at the moment. If you could give them one actionable piece of advice, something that they can do today, tomorrow, and start changing things, what would you advise?
I think for me, if I did, because I was struggling to make friends and everything else, a lot of the things that I did for other people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things that I was doing was for other people. A lot of things that I did was to fit in. And the one thing for me that was important the day I say I feel so much love, the one thing I did that day did something that was just for me. And that's the most important thing. Ask yourself, what can you do that is just for you? Something for you. It doesn't have to involve your wife, your husband, or anything else. Something that is just, what can I do? Something that is just for me. Because for me, what I found in my journey to find self-love is I thought I was going to love myself a lot more if I pleased other people. And actually, it did not matter what I did. I still did not feel that great about myself. Mm-hmm. And the only point that your life changes is, what do you do for you? What do you do for you? What do you do to feed your mind? What do you do that makes you happy? Because when you're in a state of not loving yourself, and this is very important of anything that I've said, if you're in a state of not loving yourself, you never do anything that pleases you. So then you start getting deeper into this hole of not loving yourself. So what you're looking for is doing what is the one thing that's really going to make me happy. And that's why you get other people who, when they have a bad day, they're struggling. So what do? They go and have alcohol, or they go and take drugs, because they're looking for that one thing that's going to make them happy. Well, it's not going to make them happy. It's going to numb the pain for them. So they do that one thing for them. But you got to ask, what is the one thing that's going to make you happy? That's going to make you happy, because you've got to be happy to be a great husband. You've got to be happy in you to be a great wife. You've got to be happy to be a great parent in you, in everything that you do. And a lot of time we think, oh, just because I'm married, just because I'm a parent, I've just got to think about everybody else. That you forget to do the you bit.
A very important takeaway, indeed, with that. As you mentioned, our friend 𝗿𝗶𝗆 earlier, and I remember he talks about the self-love list, where you have a list of things that you can practice on a regular basis to increase your level of self-love. And it's a very handy tool to have when your inner world becomes dark and you kind of forget that there are these things that you can do about yourself, and start turning things around.
Yeah, and it's just not the people who've gone through a difficult past who haven't got the self-love. I've known really confident people to lose. Got a client came to me a month ago. He's really strong. He's an executive. He's done so many things, and something happens, and he just completely loses his love for himself.
Yeah,
and just like completely goes. So you get people like me who have had a difficult past, but then you get people who've had a really good childhood and a good life, and all of a sudden something happens and it knocks their confidence and they lose that self-love. And so it's important to be able to watch that, what we do, even when things are going so well, that you're able to look back and say, I've got something, I call it my self-love meter now, which I use with my clients. So where is my self-love? How loved do I feel about myself today? And it's something that I use when I wake up in the day. So how much self-love have I got today? And I use it at the end of the day as well and say, how much self-love have I got today? It's quite interesting because you can measure it. I can go, I don't feel so much today. But then if you're able to have something that you can measure, then it becomes something that you can control.
100%. That's fantastic. Frank, let me ask you also some quick fire questions to start wrapping things up. The first one I always ask is, what does personal development mean to you?
For me, personal development is doing something for you that is going to better your life, not with material things. That's going to better your life emotionally, because life is not what we get, it's who we become.
True. And knowing what you know now, if you could go back in time and meet your 17-year-old Frank, what's the one piece of advice you would give him?
Oh, I would tell him to enjoy every process, because it's going to be worth it. It's interesting because I do sometimes. I go, when we're in that moment, we're just thinking of that other idea that actually we don't look around to stop and enjoy the view and see a lot more, and we miss out certain things. So actually, I would actually go, it is a process, enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we tend to learn that later in life, that it is a journey that we need to enjoy. It's something that heaven knows that it took me a very long time to realize, much further than 18. Frank, let's say you had a magic wand and could change something in the world as it is today. What would you change?
This is a point where a lot of people say, I'll take away all pain and everything else. I would take away the spirit of not giving up. Because for me, I just feel like in everything that we have in the world today, it's come down to people who refuse to give up. When we read people about the Nelson Mandelas of this world, the Martin Luther Kings of this world, so many great things, the Gandhis, it's that spirit of not giving up. So for a lot of people think success is all about taking away those little problems, but actually the world gets better when people just never give up on their goals. So for me, I would just go, let's have a world with people who never give up.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Is there anything you were really hoping we would discuss today and we completely missed it, Frank?
It's been, I think it's flown really well. It's gone the way I hoped it was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the last thing I would say on self-love is, again, I talked about the love meter, is actually acknowledging this: where am I? How do I feel? How do I feel about myself? And give yourself a break. When we do things, it's about we're going to do something, it's going to fail. We don't succeed. We set up a business, it fails. I think a lot of people don't come back to doing the business. It's because they put that on themselves. They say things like, "Oh, I'm useless. I'm just so stupid. I haven't got that." They don't think, what have I learned from that experience? So for me, in everything that I do, is being able to, when something fails, I ask myself, what have I learned from that? Why did it fail? But I don't put the whole blame on myself. I don't feel like, oh, I'm so stupid or anything else. I go, what have I got? What have I learned from this experience? And self-love is about learning from experience and using it to advantage. There's always going to be low moments in our lives. But what you don't want to is for you to lose yourself in those low moments, and you become those low moments. You become the man or woman who had a failed business and you never ever set up another business. But self-love is being able to go, right, I tried that business, it didn't work, but I've learned from this. It failed because of what I did not know, and I'm going to make it succeed because of what I know now.
Thank you, Frank. I was just taking a note. That was something incredible you said. not to become those low moments. Can you share with us how can people find out more about you and what you do, and how can they connect?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, franksaliki.com.
Mm-hmm.
So Saliki is spelled Saliki. So it's franksaliki.com. You find I got my details there, got my email address on there. And also you can also find a copy. Mm-hmm. You can find a copy of my book, Arise and Shine, mm-hmm. In which I talk about the journey from failing my high school exams and to setting a goal to go to university and the whole process to get there. And you can find that on Amazon. You can find that, or you can contact me with the details on my website. You can contact me for a signed copy as well.
Awesome. Frank, I want to thank you very much for this conversation. I think there were some invaluable things that you shared, and I'm sure that everyone, but especially people who have had or are having at the moment some issues with their self-love, will find some golden nuggets, shall we say, of things that they can do to change things around or start changing things around. So I want to wish you all the best with your business and with your life and your mission to inspire people. Any parting words?
First of all, I just going to say thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for doing the podcast as well to help a lot more other people develop themselves. And it's great when we got this platform, and especially in this time. And I think my parting words, at the moment we're living in a very difficult time. We can't go away from it. But the one thing that you can't do in the power of self-love, don't make it personal. It's a difficult time. And in everything that you're doing, don't make it look like you're failing. Just look for ways to make things better, to improve. When you separate that from your personal with everything that's going on, you start looking for solutions. You start looking for answers. And that's the thing that you have to take. And in everything that you want to do, if you've been looking to do something and you've been comparing yourselves to other people, remember, especially when we look at other people, me and Nagi in the personal development, when we start this, we look at other people who are doing it for a long time. The Les Browns and Tony Robbins. And a lot of people do that. They compare themselves to people who have been doing it forever. The only thing that you need to do is one thing that I did in 2007. Just make that step. Make a decision and follow through.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and rate Personal Development Mastery on Apple Podcasts, and also share this episode with someone who you think will benefit from it. If you want to become part of an exclusive community, gain access to unique content, and at the same time support this podcast, then become my patron. The link is in the show notes, or you can type bit.ly/pdmpat. If you want to know more about what I do and how I can help you, join my Facebook group Personal Development Mastery. Again, the link is in the show notes, or you can simply type bit.ly/pdmgroup. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in,